Good morning, grade 10s. I believe you guys are doing quite okay. In this lesson, as you can see on the caption, we are going to look into the parabola. We're going to understand how to answer the parabola, and we're going to understand how to interpret the formula or to describe the formula. Well, once you understand what the formula says, it will be easy for you to understand what you are dealing with. So, grade 10s, welcome, and I hope you are going to have some fun, and I believe you are going to learn some new things, okay? Well, what I'm going to do is to make sure that I highlight the things that are most frequently asked in the questions, okay? By the way, before we do everything, we need to understand the formula. We need to look into the parabola formula and then understand what it means. Well, it says y will be equal to ax squared and then plus q. Now we need to understand what is the function of a, what is the function of q, and what is y and what is x. If we can understand very well what we are dealing with, I think the better. So this is the first graph that we look into grade 10, and then in grade 11 it's going to progress into ax squared. Then we're just going to add some bx and then c, all right? And then it can also be in this form, a into x minus p squared plus q, or it can be in this form, a into x minus x1, x minus x2. So you guys in grade 11, you are only looking at this one. I'm just giving you a highlight of what grade 11 will entail. Now, I want you guys to look at this formula, and I want you to understand what a does on the formula. Remember, a will be represented by a number, q will also be represented by a number. For example, we can say here is the formula of a certain graph with negative x squared minus 5. For example, that means your a here will be negative 1 because there is an invincible 1 before the x squared, and then that means your q will be negative 5. All right, so I want you to understand that a is it stands for the number, q stands for a certain number, any number that we can put there. Now I want us to look at this. I'm going to say a, and I want you to write this note so that you understand. If a is a positive number, if a is a positive number, that means your graph will look like this, will look like that. It's going to be a smiley face, so it's going to look like that. It's going to be a smiley face. Well, we say smiley face because if you look into this little guy here, if he's gonna smile, his mouth will be like that. So we just need to remember that, okay, if a is positive, that means I have a smiley face graph. So that's how your graph will look like. And then again, looking at a again, we need to understand what a does on the formula. Now, if it appears now, if the value of a is a negative number, it's a negative number, that will mean the graph that you are going to draw will look like that. Right, will look like that. Remember, it can also look like that. Doesn't matter where. Even this one, it can be something like this. So it doesn't matter where the turning point stands. This is how the shape of the graph will look like. if maybe the value of a is negative. Even if we give you a formula and say plot, well, you can be able to see how your graph will look like. So we're gonna learn how to sketch here. Now let's now go and talk about the q. Well, q is the maximum height. Q is the maximum height, or you can say is the range of the graph, is the range of the graph. Or someone can say, well, q is where the graph ends. It's where the graph ends, or tends, let me not say ends, where the graph tends. This is exactly where the graph tends. For example, if I can say to you, if I can say to you, here's the formula, you have x squared plus 2. Now, understanding that the a is positive here, your graph will smile. Your graph will smile like that. That means the value of the q there will be represented by where the graph tends. So it will turn exactly at 2. It will turn exactly at the value of 2. Well, for example, if maybe another example, if maybe I said to you x is equal to negative x squared minus 1, well, understanding the first thing that you do is to have your look at your q, where the q will be at negative 1, because I believe you understand where the negative y-axis is. So that means the value of q will always touch the y-intercept, So this is where your graph will look like. But then your graph has a negative a, and then now you remember that, oh, okay, if the graph has a negative a, that means it's a set phase, so your graph will look like this. Your graph will look like that. So those letters are very important. The value of the a and the value of the q with their signs matters when you have to understand the graph and when you have to plot. So I want you to understand what q does on the graph and what q does on the graph. So q represents where the graph ends or where the graph tends, and then a tells you the shape of the function. Okay, well, I believe you wrote that down. I want us to continue again to try to plot. If we can learn to sketch, and then you will understand these things better. Okay, it's a very, very interesting topic that you will love even in grade 11. Now, having this formula, let's say maybe I say to you, sketch the graph of, I'm going to say y will be equal to negative x squared minus 2. Okay, negative x minus 2, or rather let me make it minus 4. Understanding that if I'm gonna have something like that, obviously anyhow, if I'm going to draw a graph here, maybe for example, if I'm going to draw a graph here, it simply means I need to know where the graph will touch on the line of x. Okay, on the line of x-axis, and I need to know where the graph will touch on the y-axis. Now, before I go in details, I want to discuss something here. If you look at this line, this is the line of y. We call it y-axis. And any point on that line, we call it y-intercept, and the value of x will be 0 on that point. For example, if you look at this function, this graph rather, you have 1, you have 2, you have 3, you have negative 1, you have negative 2, you have negative 1, you have negative 2, you have 1, and then you have 2. Any point on that line, if I randomly pick this point, now that means the value of y there, it's negative 1, but my x is 0 because I need to go and touch where the graph, where the line touches, where the x-axis touches. This is the x-axis. So if I'm here, then I'm going to go up and then I'm going to meet my 0. So that means the coordinate of that point will be 0 and negative 1. So if I'm here, so we call it a y-intercept. We call it a y-intercept, right? And then this one, I'm going to call it x-intercept. It's an x-intercept. Why? Because it's a point on the x. Okay, it's a point on the x. So according to the coordinate, you must start with x and then come with the y. So what is your x? Well, my x here is 2. My y, if you're gonna go right there, you will meet the 0 because this is the origin. Everything is 0 there. So that means you're gonna have 2 and 0. Unlike if I'm going to put a point here. If I'm going to put a point there, well, I have to go up and I have to go right. That means I'm going to have negative 2 for the x and negative 2 for the y. So I want you to understand the coordinate. So if I say draw this graph, first of all, you need to tell me where the graph is going to touch on the y, right? Where the graph is going to touch on the y. By the way, let me just make it positive. Let me just say x squared, let me just say x squared. So by doing that, before you plot, point number 1, before you sketch, find x and y intercepts, because once you know the point, it becomes so simple for you to draw. So before you sketch, you need to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Okay, I hope it makes sense so far. Now that means you're gonna start by saying y-intercept. Now when we find y-intercept, remember any point on the y, your x will be 0. That's what I want you guys to pay close attention to. Any point on the y, x is 0. Right? So having this formula, y will be equal to x squared minus 4. Now that tells me that my x should be 0. So you're going to work with the formula that you have. So that means I'm looking for the y-intercept. However, my x should be 0. So if you punch with your calculator, you get negative 4. That means the y-intercept, the point on that y, your x will be 0 and your y will be negative 4. That's it. That's what you need. Okay. And then from there, you're going to find x-intercept. You're going to find x-intercept. Now, having x-intercept, any point on the x-intercept, your y will be 0. That is a fact. Your y will be 0. So that means looking at this formula, y is equal to x squared minus 4. We need to make y our 0. And then we're going to have x squared minus 4. And then that's where you need to factorize. I think I taught you guys how to factorize. How do we factorize? Well, oh, because yeah, sorry about that. How do you factorize? Well, you're going to factorize by remembering that this is a difference of 2 squares. Some of you who don't know what if you don't remember what difference of 2 squared means, I will give you another way. So those who know, well, they know that they have to expand this equation like that, where you'll put your x here and put your x there, and then as a result we say which two numbers, actually after put in these two brackets, you say which two numbers or what did we multiply with to get x squared. Obviously we used x and x, we multiplied x and x to get the x. And then which two numbers did you multiply together and they gave you 4? Well, it was 2 and 2. 2 multiplied by 2, that will be 4. So when that happens, you will have to say, well, the other bracket should be positive, the other bracket should be negative. As a result, you need to say x minus 2 should be equal to 0, or x plus 2 should be equal to 0. Then x will be equal to 2, or x will be equal to negative 2, because you need to take the 2 to the other side. It was negative, it must be positive that side. This one is positive. When it jumps the equal sign, it's going to be negative that side. Well, if you don't understand from here, you can do it this way. You can say, well, I have 0 equal to x squared minus 4. So I think I should take the 4 to the other side. You know, should take the 4 to the other side. Therefore, you're going to have a positive 4. And then you have x squared. Well, I believe you know so far how to remove the square. You remove the square by putting the square root both sides. Then as a result, the square will cancel the 2. You'll be left with only x. And then now the square root of 4 is 2, and you have two products. You have two products. Every time you find the square root of a number, you get two products. You get the negative that number and the positive that number. So therefore, that means you have x that is equal to 2, and also we have x that is equal to negative 2. So you choose whether you're going to go with this method or you're going to go with the method of different of two squares. So you will choose from there. Okay, so now we do have our points, right? We do have our points, and then now if you look closely, we now say, okay, we have all the points that we are looking for. We have all the points. So the first thing that we do is to have our straight line, and then we have our x-axis. Okay, you don't need to write like you are an artist. You are in the exam, you just need to tell them something, to show them something rather, as long as your graph is neat. Okay, but you don't need to waste time trying to trying to make your graph look like you are in an art class. Okay, so understanding that you're gonna have 1 2 3 4, -1, -2, -3, -4, -1, -2, -3, -4, maybe -5, and then you're gonna have 1, you're gonna have 2, you're gonna have 3, you're gonna have 4. Therefore, this is how you start. You check the y-intercept. This is the y-intercept. It tells you that you're gonna have to touch a -4 where x is 0, and it's absolutely here. It's absolutely here, because if you go up there, you're gonna meet the 0. So that is the point of y-intercept. So it's going to be here, it's going to be there. And then we want to know where is the graph going to touch on the x-axis. Remember, we are done with the y now. We know where the graph is going to touch. It's going to touch at -4 where x is 0. And then again is going to touch at 2 where y is 0. Remember, y is 0 on the x-intercept. So that means you come again and say, okay, my graph will touch at 2. So it's going to touch here. It's going to touch at 2, and then again it's going to touch at -2. It's going to touch at -2. So now you know how the graph will look like, because you have 3 points. You definitely have 3 points. So you just join these 3. You join these 3 points like that, and then there you have the graph. There you have the graph. Just join the 2, then you're gonna have your graph. Simple, just like that, no problem. So that's how it's gonna go. So now that you know how to plot the graph, I'm going to help you with some question from 2023. This is the paper the grade 10s wrote last year. So I'm just going to show you how it looks like, and then from there we answer the questions, and from there we answer some questions. And these questions are very important because this is what you should expect in the exams. Okay, I believe you now understand how to plot the graph. So you can also try to draw this graph. You can have some little exercise, some little activity. You can try to plot the graph of negative x squared plus 4. Okay, negative x squared plus 4. And then you can try to plot the graph of x squared minus 16. You can try to plot the graph of y equal to negative 2x squared plus 8. You can try to plot the graph of these three things, and then see if maybe you will be able to make it. If you struggled, just come back to this post and then comment and say I tried to draw the second graph, I didn't win, or I struggled to draw the graph of number 3, so that I communicate with you and then I can help you how to do that. Okay, now I'm going to show you how the question 5 looked like. This was 2023. They said given, it was question 5, they said given that the graph of g of x is equal to negative x squared plus 4. Oh, Nkosiam is the same as the graph I just told you to draw, the first one. And then they also said we also gave you the graph of f of x with mx plus c, and you don't know, that means it's the formula of the straight line. Well, I didn't discuss that one, but I believe at this stage you know what you are dealing with. So this is how the graph looked like. This is how their graph looked like. It was like this, and then it's like that. It's like that. And there is another straight line graph going, make it like that, going straight like this. Yeah, it was like that. Then they said this is the A, this is the graph of f, the straight one, and then this is the graph of g, the parabola. And then this is 0, and then this is B, and then this is C. That is the turning point. That is the C. So that's all the information you have. They just drew the graph for you and gave you the thing. So before I answer that question, I'm just gonna dive a little bit about the straight line. Well, the formula of a straight line is given by y is equal to mx plus c, where m is the gradient. And the formula of the gradient is given by y2 minus y1. You should know that one. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. That's how you get the formula of the gradient. The gradient. So suppose I say to you, look, this is the line. Just give me an example. This is the line, and we give you 2, and then we give you 3, and then we say find the equation, like find the equation. We say find the equation of that line. First of all, you need to identify the coordinates. This coordinate here, my friend, it's x and y. What is your x here? Remember, any point on the y, your x is 0, so you're gonna have your 3. And then here, any point on the x, your y is 0. That means your x is 2, your y is 0. Okay, so you're gonna have 0 and 3, 2 and 0. Now, for you to find this equation in this form, you need to know what m is and what c is. So let's start with m, which is the gradient. Well, understanding that you must use this formula, gradient should be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You're gonna use your coordinates to substitute these things, so you must name your gradients, your coordinates. So you can say, well, let me say this is my x2 and this is my y2. Don't ever say this is x2 and this is y1. Don't do that. If this is x2, this should be y2. So that means you have x1 and y1 for the other coordinate. Then let's substitute. What is your y2? Your y2 is 0 and you are subtracting the 3. Then you say over your x2 is 2 and you are subtracting the 0. That means the value of the gradient will be negative 3 minus 2. So it's going to be negative 3 minus 2. That is the gradient. It means so far your equation has negative 3 over 2 and then x plus c. So you do have the m now, but you don't have the c. But that's okay. It's easy to find c because you're gonna choose any coordinate, because your coordinate has x and y. So you can substitute x and y and then get to know what your c is. So let's choose this one. Let's choose this one. What is your y here? Well, your y is 3 on that coordinate. You have negative 3 over 2. What is your x? Well, your x is 0 and then plus c. Therefore, that means you have 3 this side. Any number multiplied by 0 will be 0 plus c. Therefore, c will be equal to 3. Therefore, that means the complete formula of that line will be the gradient, where the gradient, we found it's negative 3 over 2x. You just put the x, you don't substitute the x, you only substitute the m and the c, and then we found that our c is positive 3. So that means this is the equation. This is how you find the equation of the straight line. I believe I wasn't too fast and I believe you understood. I was just giving you a highlight on how to find the equation, because I can see here that we gave you two problems, two graphs, and we always do that in the exam. We give you the parabola. In most cases, we can feature the straight line. So if I say find the equation of the straight line, you are going to say, well, sir, if I can find the coordinate of A, because that's where the graph touches on the A, and if I can find the coordinate of C, then I can be able to find my complete formula, which is the formula of the straight line. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to discuss another few things before I answer that question. There are things I want you guys to understand. I want us to talk about the line of symmetry. Line of symmetry. Well, even the grade threes, they know what line of symmetry is. Well, this is the line that cuts any shape into half. If I'm going to have a circle, where is my line of symmetry? My line of symmetry will be here, because that's where it's gonna touch. It's gonna cut. If I have a triangle, they know how to draw a line of symmetry. You're just gonna cut. Then if you do something like that, and then we say to them, where is the line of symmetry? They know very well they're gonna cut. Okay. So why am I talking about symmetry? Well, according to line of symmetry, you are cutting things into half. For example, I'm going to go back to the circle. So if I'm going to draw a line here to show the line of symmetry, that tells me that this distance should be equal to the other distance. Like exactly, if I have 2 centimeters here, I should have 2 centimeters there. Okay. So let's talk about the line of symmetry on the parabola. Now, I can have a parabola that looks like this and the parabola that looks like that. The line of symmetry will be drawn from the turning point. So it's going to go like that. This will be the line of symmetry, the line of symmetry. So that means, okay, so that means this distance is equal to that distance, and this distance is equal to that distance. This distance is equal to that, this distance is equal to that, because we have cut it in half. We cut it in half. So the distances should be equal. So in grade 10, it's very, very simple and easy to talk about the line of symmetry because your turning point is always on that line. So what I'm trying to say, guys, is if you are going to have something like that, like the graph that we have now, it's just for an example. If we find out that the coordinate of A, like this coordinate is -8 here, well, that means, remember, this line in grade 10, the y-intercept is the line that cuts this graph into half. So if we have 8 units from 0 to the left, that means you should have 8 units again to the right. So remember, these sides you have the positive numbers, that means you're going to have a positive 8 on the other side. You see? So there's no need to struggle. If we say find the coordinates of A and B, that means you're going to concentrate on that A and say, well, if A is 4, if A is -4, what are more like a 4? Because the distance from 0 to B and from 0 to A is equal. So that's what I want you guys to understand in the first place. Now let's go and see which questions were posed for this graph. Well, according to this question, 5.1 said write down the coordinates of C. Write down the coordinates of C. They want to know what is at C. You know, if C, we know already that any point, listen carefully, any point on the y, we call it y-intercept, right? So this is what you're going to do. You call it y-intercept. So as a result, we are actually trying to say find y-intercept. So you're going to say, okay, y-intercept. And y-intercept means x is 0. So that means looking at our g of x, remember, this is the formula you have to use. This is the parabola 1. Okay. So, by the way, this point is being shared by the two graphs. So we cannot use this one. If we were given a complete numbers, for example, f of x is equal to x plus 4, then we will still use it because they share a point, but we cannot use it because we don't have numbers. So now we're going to use the graph with numbers. We have been given g of x is equal to -x squared plus 4. So understanding, and you need to know that this number is 0. I mean, it's y. That g of x is the same as y. This thing is the same as y. So don't stress about it. So you have -x squared plus 4. So we are looking for y-intercept. That means our x should be 0. So we're going to go y is equal to negative into 0 squared plus 4. You just punch it the way it is on your calculator. You find that y is 4. Therefore, it means the coordinate of C, x is 0 there, and then your y is 4. Done. That's how you find the coordinate. That's how you find the coordinate. I believe it makes sense now, and you won't struggle. Okay, now let's move to the next question. Well, the next question says, that's 5.2. The next question says determine the coordinate of A and B, right? The coordinates of A and B. They want to know the coordinates of A and B. By the way, guys, you are looking for the points that are on the x. This is the approach. That means you are looking for x-intercept. And what did I say? I said any point on the x, the y will be 0. Okay, so you're actually looking for y in x-intercept. So which formula are you going to use? You cannot use the straight. You can use the straight line for A only, you know, if you had one. but rather use the graph of the parabola, because these are the points on the parabola. So you're going to have y is equal to negative x squared plus 4. Therefore, y should be 0, and then you're going to go 0 is equal to negative x squared plus 4. Well, let's do it this way. I want you to note something, that you cannot do a difference of 2 squares if there is a negative here. You must move all the equation to the other side. So when negative x comes this side, it's going to come as positive. Then the 4 will come this side as what? Will come this side as negative because it was positive. And then you can do difference of 2 squares. It's like the same example I told you, So you're going to put the x here because x squared is obtained by x multiplied by x. 4 is obtained by 2 multiplied by 2. You just put different signs there. Therefore, x minus 2 will be equal to 0, or x plus 2 will be equal to 0. Therefore, x will be equal to the positive 2, or x will be equal to the negative 2. Someone can say, sir, I choose to do it differently. You had 0 equal to negative x squared plus 4. So I always need a positive x squared. You cannot work with it if finally negative. So L1. So you're going to have a positive x squared. You are left with 4 that side, and then you square root both sides. When you do that, you'll be left with only x here. And then if you find the square root of 4, it will give you 2. But remember, the square root means you have two different you have a number with different signs. So it's a positive that number and a negative that number. That means another x is equal to negative 2 and another x is equal to 2. So you can choose between these two methods. So they are looking for A and B. So we can simply tell them that, well, A is on the negative side of things, right? A, it's on the negative side. It's on the negative x-axis. So we found that, we have to choose this one because this is the one with the negative. So we're going to say, well, the x is negative 2 at A. However, the y is 0 there, because any point on the x, on the line of x-axis, y will be 0. Okay, so we know that B will take the positive one, but it follows the law. I told you, if we're going to go negative 1, negative 2, then it means you're going to have to go 1 and 2. It's simple, just like that, because the two distances is equal. So that's why you say, now my B is going to be 2. However, the y at B will be 0. This is how you find the coordinates. Beautiful, no complications. Okay, just like that. So I'm going to write them here. 2 and 0, negative 2 and 0. We found the coordinates of C though. They were 0 and 4. Okay, I'm just going to write them there. Well, I believe it makes sense. Let's move to the next question. Now, on the next question, we see something. On the next question, it's on 5.3. The 5.3 says determine the values. Determine the values of M and C. So they're actually trying to say, tell us what M is and what C is. Well, I told you guys, that the M is the gradient, and the formula of the gradient is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You just need 2 points. You cannot be so crazy and use that point. Are you mad? You cannot use B. You must use A and C, because these are the 2 points on that line. You need 2 points, remember. So we have 0 and 4. We have negative 2 and 0. So we can name them the way we want. We can say this is x2, or we can say this is x2. And then if that's x2, this should be y2. And then that means you're going to have x1 and y1. So let's go and do that. What is our x2? I mean our y2. Our y2 will be 4, and then we're gonna subtract a y1, which is 0. Our x2 is 0, and we are subtracting a negative 2. Be careful. Don't say 0 minus 2. That will be wrong. 0 is subtracting a negative 2. Don't mess it up, okay? So 4 minus 1, it will be 4. Use a calculator, because you will use your head and you may get it wrong. Just use your calculator just for confirmation. If you use a calculator here, it's going to give you 2, okay? Then that means the gradient, the m that they're looking for, will be 2, okay? Then how do you find c? Well, I showed you. So far you have y equal to, now your m, we found it, is 2x, and then plus c. You need a c now. You need to choose any points. Well, I love choosing the one that has a 0, you know. I love choosing the one that has a 0 because less problems and less efforts. Because if I'm going to use this one, I'm just going to put 4, because this is my y and this is my x, and then 2 into my x is 0 plus c. And then I know any number multiplied by 0 is 0. So 0 plus c is just c, and then I have my 4. That's it. So if they wanted a formula, now they just wanted the values. If they wanted a formula, we were going to conclude and say, guys, the f of x that they're looking for, when it's complete, it's going to be 2, because we found our m and then we found our c. So this is how the graph will look like. Okay, so this is how the graph will be written as. Your f of x is now 2x plus 4. I believe that makes sense. So another question says, how should g be transformed so that the new graph will have a y-intercept of -2 and still have a maximum turning point? Okay, I'm going to write that question here so that you understand very clearly. Okay, 5.4, you know, these are some of the questions you need to read to understand. They said, how should g, they're referring to the graph of the parabola, how should g be transformed so that the new graph will have a y-intercept of -2 and still have a maximum turning point. Let's discuss some few things here. When a graph is like this, when a graph it's a set phase, we say it's maximum because now it's eco-redeem, like it's on top. So this is a maximum turning point. But if it's a smiley face, it will have a minimum turning point, because now it's like a C, you know. So it's a minimum, meaning the line will be below the turning point, something like that. So they said it will still be the maximum, this line, and have a maximum, and still have a maximum turning point, meaning we didn't flip the graph to look like something like that. We transformed. So they said, how should G be transformed? Now I want you to listen carefully, to listen very, very, very carefully, because I want to show you how this thing will play out. Our previous graph, the one that I just wiped, it's like this. Okay, it's like this, and the line was at exactly 4. It was at 4. How should G be transformed so that the new graph will have a y-intercept? Meaning, remember, this is your y-intercept. Okay, so that the y-intercept will be -2. So imagine you are at 4 and you need to go to the -2. That's what it means. So suppose this is -2. That means your new graph will look like this. That means your new graph will look like that. So this is how your new graph will look like. So how should it be transformed? It's simple. It should go down. We need to know by how many units should it go down. Okay, so that means we have 4 units here. Remember, you have 4 units from the 0, 4 units from the 0, and then you're gonna have another 2 units going down. So it's basically 4 and 2. So that means we should go 6 units downwards. So that's how you answer the question. And then you're going to say it should shift 6 units. Should shift 6 units downwards. That's how you'll answer that question. Okay, now we now have another question. They look like they want to bury you. It's like they want to bury you, or they just want to cause an unnecessary stress the way they ask these questions. But then I'm going to help you to understand those questions. Our graph was going like that. I'm sorry, it's now uglier than before. Oh nkosi yami, ngiyahluleka la. Okay, I'm just gonna try again because I need to show you how things will look like. Okay, this was your A, this was your B, and then this was at -2, this was at 2, something like that. Okay, so the following questions will look like that, and I want you to understand what they mean. This is 5.5. They said for which values of x is, and then bar 5.1.1 f of x less than g of x. Now I want us to look at these questions because they may look like something else which you don't understand, but I want to interpret in a way that you will understand from today. For which values of x, they want to know from where to where. It's like from where to where. This thing means below. It means below. So in other words, which value of x is the graph of f of x below g? Remember, this is the graph of f. Where is it below? When we talk about below, I want to do something like that so that you understand. Look at something like this and look at something like this. For example, do you realize that the line, the straight line is below? It is below, like from here, only here, where it is above, where it is below the graph of G, right? But if we had a smiley face, it will be above because it is now on top of the G. So it will depend. But when we look at ours now, we can see that the f of G is below from 2 up to there. And then we're only looking for the x, so now label it is 0. So it's from here up to here. This is the only place where the graph of f is below, because now it is on top. Can you see that from here? It's on top. Yes, it's on top. This one is below, this one is on top. So if you check also from that 0, because you're looking at x only, from here up to there it is above. So we only want a place where it is below. So how do you answer that? You answer it like this. You tell us that, well, the value of x where the graph is below, it's like a symbol, just put element, it's like an element. It will be between 0 and 2, like it will be from 0 up to -2. Oh, hey, -2. Yes, I forgot. Nearly said 2 and it was going to be wrong. So you tell us that it is where the x is x element. So x element, it will be from 0 up to -2, because this is the only place where it is below. So this is what we are looking for. We're going to give you 2 marks to do that. Then they will come and do something like this. They will come and do something like that. This is 5.5.2. They will say f of x multiply by g of x less than or equal to 0. Now don't panic. Just try to substitute. You know what your fx is. We found it before. It was 2x plus 3, if I remember. It was plus 4, sorry, if I remember very well. You put it in brackets, and then this one you do have it. It's -x squared plus 4. It's a matter of substituting. It's a matter of substituting. Okay. So what you're going to do now is to choose, is to separate them. You're going to say 2x plus 4 or -x squared plus 4. This is like this equal to that, this equal to that, because take this thing as an equal sign. Okay, take it as an equal sign. What is going to happen here is you're going to have 2x. You need to solve for x here. So 4 will come that side as -4. You now divide both sides by 2. Then this will give you -2. Then done with this one. Well, this one you can take this one to the other side, because I told you you always need it to be positive. Then you can square both sides. Then you can just say 2. It's fine. You can just say 2 plus or -2. Then it'll be done without any complications. Well, I believe you understood. I believe you haven't. I believe you understood, and I believe you have an idea now. So let me know if you think you now understand better how to deal with it. So I wish you all the best. Please repeat this video until you understand the things that you didn't understand when I first explained. It's just a matter of watching it more and more and more, and then you'll definitely understand. Well, I believe that later we will be looking at hyperbola. Well, hyperbola is the one that looks like that. I believe some of you are having some issues with it. It's the graph where it's gonna look like that. It's something like that. So just stay tuned for more of those ones.